Mind your business. Mind your business. Mind your business. Mind your business.
For the people who are learning to mind their business.
This is Mind Your Business. It's a video podcast for Diggy Broadcasting, The Fan, 680 93.7 FM, which is the Bridge Radio Network, and Atlanta Sports X. My name is Tug Coward, along with Phil Hudson, and we always do sports, music, and money, how they intersect, how they work together. We always goof about athletes wanting to be rock stars and rock stars wanting to be athletes. It seemingly never changes, and that almost continues to grow because of cross-pollination these days, because now you can do that. Yeah. I mean, you can literally, in your time off, you can set up a studio in your house and record music if you're musically inclined.
That's crazy.
The ability is there. It is so easy to do nowadays. I mean, we had Wix Patton in recently, played at Georgia, and decided instead of playing football, he's going to follow his pursuit of music.
Cool kid, too.
Yeah, and he's super cool kid.
Right. Well, the technology's enabled.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's made everything easier, right? I mean, you can do almost anything from home. You probably work from home.
Yep.
Technology makes everything easier until it doesn't, and then that's when things go really, really south. Yeah. But I want to introduce you to Vince Thompson. He is the chairman CEO of Atlanta-based Melt, which is one of the country's largest independent sports marketing firms, and they focus on getting athletes sponsored and how that those guys are now making. They're just a whole new avenue of making a living outside of what you do for a living.
Well, as we're talking about, the ability with technology and social media, every athlete, is their own brand now. And so the recognition of that and the ability to exploit that in a positive way, particularly using the sports as a platform. And I really believe it's really only scratching the surface. And one thing we can talk about today is how this phenomenon that you're talking about is going to have a huge impact on college athletics.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
And we were just talking about Wix Patton.
Yeah.
College athlete.
Blew up on Twitter.
Yeah. Now used social media just like you're talking about to launch his music career, and he's like a rocket ship. This kid's just taken off.
Well, my prediction, what will happen, and you got to break it down a couple of ways. Not necessarily compensation for student athletes, but the ability for them to use their image and likeness for monetary gain.
That was his problem.
Yeah.
And there's two. So the NCAA prides itself on, they don't want to give the student athletes any advantages that the regular students have. But yet, on the other side, the double-edged sword is that they're not allowing those students, basically, which is a First Amendment issue, if you ask me.
Agreed.
They're not allowing those students to, if my son who's going to Georgia puts a YouTube video out, he gets compensated for it if it gets enough traction or gets enough views. A student athlete cannot do that.
Right.
But yet, the university is obviously making billions of dollars from their image and likeness. So I think that you're going to see probably a revolution in that
very soon
over the next 1 to 5 years, and I really believe. And by the way, there's legislation already, going on in California,
North Carolina as well,
and Carolina. So you're going to get it from both coasts. So, and it's a common sense.
It is
solution. Why not allow that kid to do the same thing that all the other kids
are able to do?
So it's I don't even think it's a sticky wicket, because it might even solve the compensation equation,
or at least part of it.
Or because, a lot of people don't understand, a college scholarship is not a 4-year deal. It is a year-to-year renewable deal at the leisure of the university.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, it's a very pretty strict contract.
Yeah, it is.
And so, but I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg.
I think you're right.
So with the monetary compensation, one thing I think that college athletes don't really think about first is, they are building their brand. So, I saw one of the things, so he's an Auburn grad, Tug and I went against our better judgment, had him in anyway. But you were there during what? Bo Jackson and Charles Barkley.
Bo, Charles, a big hurt.
So imagine if those guys had social media then. And then the second you step out of college, so that's kind of my point. The second these athletes step out of college, they have an established social media brand.
Right.
Zion Williamson, perfect example.
Perfect example.
Just signed a huge shoe deal and has never stepped foot on an NBA floor.
Yeah. And that was, his following is priced into the equation of
course
value.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. We live in a very capitalistic society. The revenues generated by college athletics are in the billions and billions of dollars. These coaches are making 8-9 figures, over time, major impact. So I think that over a period of time, you're going to see it'll work itself out.
It's interesting because the NCAA reached out to the legislature in California and North Carolina and basically said, we want you to stop this. We're trying to figure it out. If you proceed forward, your schools are not going to be able to participate in championships and in any postseason competition. And it made me just chuckle because the legislature in California was like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Well, you're telling me you're going to hold out every school? That's going to damage the NCAA if you don't allow. How many schools are in California? USC, you got UCLA, you got
massive.
Oh, absolutely.
Dozens.
All of them. And then North Carolina, can you imagine the NCAA tournament without Duke and North Carolina and NC State being in there?
Yeah, well, I mean, can you imagine it now without Auburn in it?
Yeah, for sure. Nowadays.
We're a basketball
Did
school
you see
now, right?
that coming?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you this.
Baseball, too.
I love Bruce, and I told him that 3 coaches in the history of Auburn have made an emotional impact on the university. Shug Jordan, football, Coach Dye, and him. The brilliance of what Bruce did is not only he's a solid X&O guy, he's a brilliant sales and marketing guy. And the day he stepped on that campus, he started going around to fraternity houses and passing out pizza at lunch on the where the students would hang out and that type of stuff. So he ingrained himself, and people forget we'd not been very good for many, many years. And so that's a situation. So did I see it coming? I think that I think we were way ahead. He made them believe that they could do
even
it.
before.
And so I was thinking that this might happen in 2 or 3 years. But it's interesting. I went down there last summer and did a fantasy camp with Pearl and the staff. And what blew me away was his knowledge of the game. And so, what sometimes is overshadowed by his salesmanship is the fact that he's a very good X&O basketball coach. And so, and I even think, I was in Minneapolis. This was our 17th Final Four to activate on behalf of the Coca-Cola Company. And was at that game, and it was one of the, maybe other than the kick 6 against Alabama in 13, that sheer elation. And then when they called the foul, and the kid went to the line and hit the 3 points. But I would tell you that probably the way Bruce handled the graciousness of defeat probably may have been more valuable in the living rooms than had we won the Final Four.
And it's interesting you say that because I don't know that many people would even consider that. And you're right, when you can lose gracefully, that speaks volumes. Everybody knows how to win.
Getting his players back, too.
Oh, my gosh.
And his post-game interviews.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like
I was like, I love this guy.
But that's who he is. But then, like I said, he's also a solid coach. So it's he's helped down there a lot. Obviously, our baseball program, and we got the equestrian,
gymnastics,
the gymnastics. It's a lot of positive things going on, down there.
And look, I'm a born and raised in Georgia. I've been a Georgia fan my whole life just because that's the only thing I knew to cheer for, man. Raised in Dalton, Georgia. Braves, Bulldogs, Falcons, and Hawks. That's the only thing I knew. And have some dear friends who go to church with that have become even closer outside of services. And the Witt family, his dad, Judd's dad, was the dean of math and science down at Auburn. So we got to go down there quite a bit.
Yeah.
Unbelievably beautiful campus. Like, I even went into Toomer's Corner, the drugstore, and bought me a Toomer's Corner hat.
Yep.
You can get lemonade?
What? Of course
Got
I did.
lemonade.
Yes, of course I did.
Lemonade.
Yeah, but that was the thing. Like, I wanted to be all in without having to be all in.
Well, the thing about Auburn, and I was just talking about this at lunch today, is that if you look at the demographic composition of the students, a lot of us came from rural areas, right? Because it's kind of farm and mechanical and all that. I actually, so I grew up in a town of 800 people with one red light.
Where'd you grow up?
Near a town called Chatham, Alabama. In we call it God's country, north of Mobile. My dad was a mayor, had a little grocery store.
That's awesome.
And
Sound like Mayberry.
it was Mayberry. It was very idyllic. I fished all the time, and there was no school selection process. My folks had been Auburn fans all their life, didn't even go there, but they said, "You're going to Auburn." So that was my selection process.
That's
and
right.
so, but and we have a great big intern program. I was telling Phil we had 37 interns this summer because my career path, but I tell these kids I made 21 on the ACT, and they look at me like I'm illiterate now because they're like 30, 32, 34.
Right.
But
That's an Alabama thing, too.
but
ACT.
Yeah, ACT, yeah, right. And there was no tutoring or prep for that. But so I got to Auburn, and my first journalism class, I was going to be a sports writer and go back and write for the Mobile Press Register. And
figured out.
So, because back then you had the local newspaper and they had what they call the agate, which you got the scores and the batting averages every day. You got your Sports Illustrated once a week. You got Sport Magazine once a month, and then you got to see Keith Jackson on Saturday and Pat Summerall on Sunday, Cosell on Monday night, and that was. But I was just consumed with sports, so I want to be a sports writer. In the first journalism class, the sports information director, David Housel, was a guest lecturer. And he talked about the press box and the sideline and the locker room and the practices. And I'm like, man, that's where I want to be. So I walked up and volunteered after class and spent 4 years really learning my craft, fell in love with the business of college sports. Golden era of Auburn, Coach Dye, Bo, Charles, Frank Thomas, Rowdy Gaines, one of the best swimmers in the world. Harvey Glance at the time was the fastest man in the world. Like it was insane.
Is that where you met Frank?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And but I covered them, but I was really particularly close to Charles.
Were you still kind of a fan?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean,
When did that kind of wear off?
Well, it's really never worn
Yeah.
off. I've
Yeah,
I've been blessed, but
I can see that.
But the great thing about Charles is that he's never changed who he is.
Yeah, and it's clear.
And if you go anywhere with him or you encounter him, in a restaurant or whatever, you're never paying a tab. He's the most gracious guy on the planet. But like when he first got down there, he weighed 310 pounds.
The round mound of
Round
rebound.
mound of rebound. Coach Smith didn't know what the heck to do with him. He was not the most highly recruited. Bobby Lee Hurt and Enos Watley were the two Alabama guys, and Charles went to Auburn. And he got down there, and you'd see him out jogging down
could you
Timbers
miss him,
Corner
right?
at midnight.
Oh, wow.
Coach Smith had him out there. But he did a 360. I saw him do a 360 from the foul line dunk when he was 18.
Wow.
And
That's impressive.
he was 6'4".
Yeah.
But so I fell in love with the business of college athletics, and have just been very blessed. I was in Birmingham 15 years, and then I had a newborn, Carter, who's going to UGA, my son, this year. But
How you handling that?
I'm handling my pocketbook's handling it really well. So
You can get into Georgia. You got the hope.
Yeah.
well, yeah, we got it. We got his mother's brains. I promise you didn't get mine. But
Got your good looks,
but
right?
yeah, well, yeah. But it was just that experience, and so through that, I go talk to a lot of college campuses about kids.
Yeah.
If you can dream it, you can do it, and that the college campus is the most outstanding professional laboratory that you're ever going to be around in your life. And so I encourage these kids to look around them. And so over time, our Melt University, we get about 300 applications. We had 37 kids this summer from 20 universities. They got to see, including Dickey, came to speak to them. I'm at 50 speakers. I'm exposing them to various career paths. Like, hey, I can make a living in sports radio. Here's the things I need to do at college to prepare myself to come to work at 680 The Fan, that type of stuff. And so, and so we only hire out of that pool, and which allows our retention rate. But if not, I can help these kids get placed. So success story this week, we had just a tremendous kid, got a job at the College Football Hall of Fame.
Very nice.
So think of
That'd be an awesome job right out of college.
Think of the like that's so important to me is, you know, the opportunity I had at Auburn, doors open unwittingly. So if I'm able to do that, I can help impact that kid for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And you never know when all that's going to come back around.
No, so I got a question there. We always like to ask people how they got on their career path. So you said one word that jumped out at me: volunteered.
Mm-hmm.
Volunteered. But and you said it, and Tug and I are in the same boat. None of us are academics. And so, and today I'm sure you look at your intern pool, man, these kids are cream of the crop nowadays.
Yep.
And so that's so much more competitive. What advice do you have for the average Joe, the kid in there that's a C student that wants to get into sports, that has the work ethic?
Yeah, that gets a go-getter.
How do you go get an intern?
Grind and grit. I tell them that the letters N-O does not spell no. It's just the first two letters of not yet. Mm-hmm. And persistence. And but if you'll outwork people, you're automatically going to be in the 10 percentile of any opportunity. And so I got to Auburn, oddly, was the largest place I'd ever been. And I looked around and I'm like, man, there's a caste system here. There's the rich kids and then the rest of us. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, and that's really where I kind of had my first epiphanies. Yeah. I was like, so the only thing I'm going to have in my favor is the work ethic and persistence and perseverance and get myself in there, because I'm like, coming out of a small town, it had never dawned on me that anybody had competitive advantages. It just really, it does. I never thought that way, and I never conditioned that way. When I got there pretty quick, I was like, God, some of these people grew up differently than me, because I had never been exposed to any of that, right? And so, so the thing I tell the kids is that, work ethic, it's the little things that count, and look around you, all around this campus, and there's these opportunities, because you want to be prepared when you come out, because they're not even in the mindset of going, well, I'm at college to get a job. That's the outcome. That's the output. And many times they're spending tens of thousands of dollars. And so,
or their parents are.
Or somebody's, which is another discussion for another day, but helping them become aware and recognize, and then me coaching them to equip them with the tools, so when they come out, if they've worked 4 years at SID, or they've run cable for 680 The Fan because you're covering the Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket game or KSU or whatever it is, then they've got this amazing portfolio and experience and relationships and contacts that then they parlay into the opportunity, and be willing to do anything that it takes. I still do that, like fetch clients, Coca-Cola or something like that. It's just, and so because they're getting great educations on the campus and in the walls, they aren't necessarily getting exposed and made aware of the other things that it's going to take to get that job. Yeah. And so the other thing you'll love that we do is that I require them to write a handwritten thank you note to every speaker.
Okay, I tell it's
a great habit.
I tell my son, he's 15,
old-timey,
all the time.
Old-timey. It's a lost art.
Thank you notes.
So these kids wrote 2,000 thank you notes this summer.
Good.
So the speakers are like, this doesn't happen.
Because nobody does that.
Nobody.
It goes so far.
And I told them, I tell them, I'm like, there's only two ways to get get kicked off the Melt University Island, is if you're caught drinking a Pepsi or you don't write your thank you notes. So
that's right. I like it though. I like them.
But we've represented Coca-Cola for 19 years.
Yes, sir.
Knock on wood.
That's right. Big Red, Atlanta-based.
Work on many of their sports activations, and like I said, this 2020 in Atlanta will be our 18th Final Four to activate on behalf of the company, and we're about to go out on our 7th season of activating ESPN College Game Day.
Yeah.
How far ahead did Coke start planning for the home?
We started planning the day after the Final Four.
Yeah.
And
same way with the Super Bowl, right?
Same thing.
Everything generates. Yeah.
Well,
I read a great book about that one time, how it just starts the next day.
Well, you got to look at these companies as big battleships, and you can't steer them like you can a motorboat.
I'm a Navy band. I can understand that.
In any major corporation, particularly in the area of marketing, it's so tied into business results and performance and moving the needle and volume and transactions and if you've got a multi-million-dollar investment in, say, March Madness or Final Four, there's a giant ROI attached to that. So there's a lot of business pressure that people don't understand about sponsorships. Obviously, with sponsorships, you want to reach a certain demographic or a target, but then what do you do with that consumer once you've reached them?
Yeah. And
so then how do you convert them into, purchasing a product? And now with the technology and social media, and the other thing about these kids is that we learn so much from them as they do from us, because they're driving the consumption and the behavior patterns of a whole generation.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating because, just like you said, you guys learn the social media angle and how to put that into action because you see it, and then they learn so much. But what you hit on a moment ago was that network and relationships, and I don't think people realize that it's not about how educated you are. It's not about any of that. It's all about relationships. Everything is.
I tell them that I'm like you got to do the perfunctory things you got to do from your education perspective, but it all boils down to relationships, how you treat your fellow person, and my old man has a saying that the ball turns 24/7, but I say now 24 minutes and 7 seconds. It moves, so you never know where this is all going to come around.
Right.
So I'm like, guys, you got to think about every encounter you have as a possible job audition.
Yep.
And by the way, don't post anything stupid on social media, because one of the first things I'm going to do as an employer,
go there and look.
If I'm going to invest thousands of dollars in you, I want to see if you got crazy behavior patterns.
Yeah. Heck, even your coworkers are doing it just to see who's sitting next to you.
I promise you.
I mean, everybody's doing their homework now.
Like I said, it's a double-edged sword.
Because you want your brand out, personal brand out there.
And so,
but you got to keep it clean.
Well, that's the way I talk to the kids about it. Is I'm like, you are your brand. Mm-hmm. You could be a talk show host this afternoon if you had something relevant to say, with the ability to get it out there. In the old days, we had to go to the library.
Yeah.
And encyclopedias and looking up these source books to find out who you were going to try to track down and target for a job opportunity or something like that. Oh yeah. And so
I think about that.
So I tell these kids, I'm like, like me on LinkedIn, for instance, I've got over 17,000 followers, and I'm like, go mine my Rolodex of followers through LinkedIn and cross-reference these kids like that. So the professionals like that. So we've been very blessed, but in my business, the only asset I got is human capital.
That's right.
So I got to find the best. I got to treat them the best. I got to give them the best opportunities, and then stay out of the way, and then keep pulling those opportunities in. But this city is, obviously the Dickies have been leaders in many, many things, in sports and sports radio and publishing and music and all that. And a lot of people don't totally fully realize the contributions that family and those brothers have made to everything that's going on now.
Yeah, they're kind of behind the scenes people.
Yeah, it is fascinating because it's fascinating to watch them work together, because their work ethic is off the charts.
Yeah.
And it really, the success they've had, it doesn't have to be, right? And but I've been around, particularly David, so much, and it's inspirational because they're still in there pounding the rock every day. So I tell all the students I speak to, I'm like, what's your secret to a long-term relationship with, say, Coca-Cola or somebody? And it's we never take it for granted.
Yeah.
I wake up every day. You can't. it's like any relationship. You can never take it for granted, and you could just always, you got to wake up and it's a new day, and we'll have a success and an event or a new client win, and I'm kind of like Saban. I'm like, all right, well, we got to go recruit today.
That's right. Yeah.
We'll enjoy it for 24 hours, but we got to go.
It's the lifeblood of college football and the lifeblood of every business.
Well, and that's the thing that, you guys, you're out, pounding the pavement relentlessly every day.
That's right.
Working every angle and continuing to improve the product that you guys are putting out in the marketplace. But it's amazing what's going on in this town from a commerce perspective, from the entertainment perspective, sports perspective, facility perspective. Look at this beautiful. This didn't exist 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah,
it was dirt,
less than
right?
That, maybe even.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that you won't see the full impact of the vision out here for another 5 or 10 years.
That's what's crazy.
Yeah. Because there's 100 teams.
Not even halfway yet?
Right, yeah. Well, and there's 100 teams a month coming in just to figure out what the Braves did here at SunTrust and at the Battery Atlanta because they want to emulate it.
Yeah.
It's I'm proud of. Ironically, I've known Derek Schiller since 1987.
Wow.
When his father was the commissioner of the SEC.
So he's one of the guys who will straight up come out and tell you, I got into this industry through nepotism.
Yep.
And Derek, he's one of the guys who's just like, look, but at the same time, he didn't get to where he is by just being someone's son.
Well, let me tell you this. Derek Schiller is relentless.
I love Derek.
And another grinder.
Yeah.
And again, to your point, he didn't have to be, and he doesn't have to be. Mike Plant, people don't know this guy won a medalist in the 1980 Olympics. Amazing guy.
Yeah.
They don't have, but it's that drive, it's that grit, it's that grind, it's
that competitive nature.
Yeah, and it's just not ever taking anything for granted, and they never wanted anything handed to him. Derek can't help who his father is.
Yeah.
But he's never run away from it. But he even worked his ass off. And I honestly believe Derek Schiller will be the next commissioner of Major League Baseball.
Man,
no kidding.
What a statement.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And if he's not, then he can go, run the NFL. Then, yeah. He's at that caliber. He is that caliber, but he's been that way since I've known him, right? And so, that what they've done out here is really mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
And I realized it was controversial for a lot of reasons, but I do think long-term that it's going to be one of the most amazing. You've got this amazing success story. You've got Mr. Blank, what an amazing success story. When the books are written. And I'll tell you another thing about the town. People don't realize this, but I would be willing to bet you that somewhere between 5 to 15% of all ESPN ad revenues come out of this.
Generated in this city.
Yep.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Coca-Cola, Chick-fil-A, UPS, Home Depot, Aflac, Kia, Benz, who else am I missing?
You got a bunch of
SR Homes.
SR Homes.
Yeah, SR Homes. Like major companies, AT&T, a lot of that money came out of here. And then there's a giant private equity firm called Rorick Capital that owns Wild Wings, Arby's, Sonic, Moe's. Yeah. So
Mitch Shaw, people forget how big
the
group is.
Oh my God, he's massive. And if you look at, he's a is it Wake Forest? He's a major contributor to.
Yeah, where they've named the practice facility after his family.
Yeah, and then so he's a
he's so unassuming.
Yeah, you would never know it. That's another thing.
Well, that's the thing is that
that's the beauty.
These guys just get up and ladies, and they just work their fanny off. Look, Sarah Blakely, the Spank story, success story. If we can figure halfway out the traffic problem in this town, we're going to be a world-class city, because that's the only thing that could choke the goose.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. This is Mind Your Business, Sports, Music, and Money, presented by SR Homes, a builder that is focused on you. You can find them on the web at srhomes.com. And Vince Thompson, he is the chairman, CEO of Atlanta-based Melt, which is one of the country's largest independent sports marketing firms. And you guys focus on college athletics. And we're just going through how Atlanta will continue to grow and grow and grow. And sometimes I almost feel like maybe we should slow down just a little bit. Let's catch our breath before we continue to continue to grow.
People south.
I don't see any signs of anybody exhaling.
Me either.
But, it's interesting what you just said. Atlanta is now the de facto home of college football.
Yes, sir. Without question. Even before the College Football Hall of Fame was here, it was. It's like country music to Nashville.
And Steve Robinson was a former CMO of Chick-fil-A. He's got a new book out now, and he and Mr. Cathy and
he's coming in.
And they, there's a very poignant section in the. By the way, he's a good Auburn grad too. So
God bless him.
Y'all got. It looks like you got Auburn. We got to get Robinson. We got to get Barkley. We got to get a lot of folks out there.
Barkley anytime.
And
he's hilarious.
And but they had. You think about this. People don't remember it now, but the Peach Bowl was like in Fulton County Stadium.
Yeah.
It was cold.
It was an afterthought.
And then another unsung hero in this town that doesn't get enough credit is Gary Stoken. Tremendous leadership. He was one of the ones that got the Hall in. He's best run bowl games in the country.
He built
CFP.
the Peach Bowl. And
William Pate is the head of the Convention Visitors Bureau. He's another one that I call them the stealth bombers. They're just behind the scenes. They're plotting. They're doing the right thing for the city and those types of things as well. So there's a lot of great vision and leadership, and it's now beginning to really work its way down to creating a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that I encourage the kids is like, if you're gonna go out and take a risk, do it now. And this is one of the best towns in the country, because the city has done a tremendous job of recruiting the young talent to this city.
Yeah, with the tech industry too.
I think the film and the television. In a long time ago, it used to be very difficult to recruit creative talent to this town. And now there's just amazing creative talent. SCAD has had a tremendous impact on that, right?
Yes.
And the level of talent in this town is as good as anywhere I've seen.
Yeah, the Savannah College of Art and Design is amazing, and they got the campus here in town, and of course the Savannah campus. But I mean, when you see some of the stuff that comes out of there, you're like, holy smokes.
Yeah, people forget they do a lot of film, too.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Oh, my God. When they do film, they're doing esports, they're doing gaming.
Which is another whole layer.
So we'll talk about that in a minute. The lady that runs my research and knowledge and insights has a master's in strategy from SCAD. And
very nice.
She's amazing. And so, but esports is I
feel like it's not tapped as much as it should be.
Well, it's coming though. You just had a kid win $3 million playing Fortnite.
But here's the thing: nobody can figure out how to make any money in it yet.
Well, that's understandable.
With the exception of the publishers,
right?
Because they control the intellectual property.
So I say energy drinks all day long should be.
Energy drinks,
candy,
energy drinks,
pizza,
QSR, bottled water, home delivery. Obviously you're going to have the endemics in that, but now I will tell you that we've been trying to do some work in the college space. My prediction...
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, esports. Okay, like Auburn's team.
Yeah, my prediction is collegiate esports within 10 years might not necessarily give football a big run for their money, but they're going to give them a hell of a run for their money.
I think you're exactly right.
And the scholarships, but I'll tell you, my son is 19, and he's been playing video games most of his life. And, people go, they're not getting out of the house and this and that. And some of that's true. But early on, he read all of the strategy books behind the games.
Right. So
he facilitated his reading.
Absolutely.
It's facilitated critical thinking. And then he got his competitive itch scratched. And then he became captain of his high school esports team, believe it or not. But right now, the way it sort of works is that the publishers... So Fortnite is phenomenal. They make $300 million a month.
Yeah, I know.
And they funded.
I've spent quite a bit on it.
Well, I never knew what Dad, I need another skin really meant. And I go, what the hell is that? And he goes, well, Dad, you used to collect pictures on cardboard when you were growing up, so there's really no difference.
Yeah, true.
Baseball cards, and so, but it did hit and influence his critical thinking and strategy and reading and literacy and hand-eye and all that kind of stuff. And so, but But over time, and I went to, did y'all happen to go to the Overwatch, which was out at the Cobb Energy?
Yeah.
I wasn't able to make it out, but I knew that it was
Atlanta
happening.
Rain, baby.
Yeah.
So Atlanta Rain. And so I think that, because you think about this, think about where MLS was in North America 20 years ago.
Yeah, it was non-existent almost.
So, and if you start watching it in an energetic environment,
It's fun.
it's actually really fun.
Yeah, I was the same way. I was real hesitant, and I saw it, and I was like, okay, I like this.
But here's the thing. What are the traditional sports going to do to counter that loss of eyeball? Because it's very difficult for me to get my son and sit down and watch a televised sporting event with me, or go.
Right.
And so
it's just going to continue to splinter, right?
it definitely is. And so if you look at what's going on, and college football's got some challenges right now with attendance.
Yeah, getting people to the games.
People go, well, what's going on here? I said, well, there's multiple things. Look at the gap of the sophistication of the experience of going to Mercedes Stadium versus going to, say, Auburn or Georgia or Stadium. You're on a really, really uncomfortable bench.
Bleachers.
It's hot.
Yeah.
You got a knucklehead standing up in front of you. There's no predictability, consistency on when the games are going to start. You got young kids at home. It's a 12-hour experience. You can't get no ingress and egress to these small towns where the schools are. You can sit in the comfort of your living room and pay less than $1,000 for an 80-inch television and watch 25 games. Drink your own Coke, drink your own beer, use your own restroom, have your friends over for
which is clean, that restroom.
Which is clean restroom. So there's it's interesting, and if you look at the continued success of the NFL, it's driven by a couple things, and I don't think it's any accident that legalized sports wagering finally came on. Yeah. New source of revenue, but also engagement and experience. And then the same with the fantasy. Yep. But that could only take it so far. And so, I think the demise of college athletics is greatly exaggerated, but I do think that the colleges are going to have to start moving with a lot more speed to address these issues.
And I think the next step will be, because you're seeing it at Auburn, at Georgia, at LSU, at Alabama. LSU just built that
$28 million locker room.
Exactly. So the next
They got a little grief for that, too, by the way.
Yes, they did. Well, look, they're bringing in that kind of money. They can do whatever they want in my book. But what I think the next step will be is that they're going to take that same idea and use the next $28 million on the fan experience.
They don't have a choice.
They don't have a choice.
They don't have a choice.
That's exactly what Alabama did.
They don't. They're shrinking to grow, right?
That's exactly right.
And here too.
Yeah, and I think that because here's the interesting thing. If you look at, I'll use Nick Saban because ironically I do a lot of work down at the University of Alabama with their sports business graduate school. I will argue that Nick Saban is underpaid. Now, why do I argue that?
Because he generates a bazillion dollars more than he earns.
So when I'm lecturing these students, class full, say of 100 people, I'll go. First thing I do is go, well, where are you from? Almost 60% of the students at Alabama are from out of state.
Yeah, the Hope Scholarship's killing it.
The Hope? And then I go, well, why did you come here?
Football.
Nick Saban.
Yeah.
Yep. He paid for himself, I think, 3 days afterwards, the A Club. Got enough donations where Saban had paid for himself within the first week. It's pretty phenomenal. And, then you're going to start beginning to see the drumbeat of, when does he retire? Now, he's in tremendous health. He's a relatively young man. His family likes it there.
But, he has Nick's kids there. He loves it. He started getting in business with Mercedes-Benz and that type of stuff. And so, but everybody assumes that Dabo
is the next.
But I'm gonna go out of the box on here today. You heard it first. I think they'll go after Kirby Smart.
I got to tell you, you're not the first person I've heard that from.
So I don't think Kirby will leave Georgia. I think because so many offers came his way while he was at Alabama. I think he really wanted Georgia.
I agree.
Now at the same time, he's done it.
I agree. But here's the reason why he wouldn't do it. Well, lots of reasons, obviously. But who wants to follow Nick Saban?
Nobody wants to be the next guy. You want to be the guy after it.
You want to be the guy after it. Because
Right.
that was like, think about it when, Coach Bear Bryant or Coach Dooley, you never want to be the guy that follows the legend.
The guy.
You want to be the other guy.
That's right.
But
You want to be
Then
the
you have
second.
Gene Stallings come in, who's the understudy of Bryant.
Yep.
That would be the same thing as
Yep.
Kirby.
Yeah.
But if you watch Dabo in interviews, he doesn't sidestep questions.
He doesn't.
Except for Alabama.
That
Well,
one, that one he even kind of alludes to.
There's a famous saying that Bear Bryant, after he got called to go coach from Kentucky, called it Mama Call.
Yeah, when Mama called.
And if you read or know Dabo's story, it's a pretty amazing story. He's a walk-on wide receiver for Coach Stalling.
He's the real Rudy, right? Not the fake Rudy.
No, and here's the thing. When he finished, they won the national championship. Jay Barker was on the team, and
Who does? He's a radio guy in Alabama too.
Radio guy. John Casmus, who founded Zoe's Food Chain, was on that team.
Zoe's Kitchen is so good.
Pretty amazing. Great success story. But Dabo was not in coaching. He was in insurance, and he went to see Coach Stallings to practice. And Coach Stallings said, "I've got a job for you."
Was it GA?
Yeah, and he goes, I'm not here for a job. I've got a job. He goes, no, I don't think you understand. I have a job for you, and that was the moment he got in it. But Dabo's he's a special guy.
Yeah.
And
he does it differently than
and you
anybody
could
else.
argue that the value, the new ACC network, Clemson football makes up a big amount of that value with
Shout out
respect to
Gary
the other
Potts.
with
There you go.
respect to the other teams. Obviously, the Duke, Carolina, basketball.
Sure.
So that'll go over pretty, and it's up that East Coast where you got tons of alumni and tons of advertisers. But the thing about Atlanta is outside of the town where the university is or located, the biggest alumni base for pretty dang near
Every university is right here in Atlanta,
and I still believe it's somewhat
including Ohio State, Michigan, all of them.
All of them. And I think it's still largely untapped from a consumer perspective. And so,
In what way, though, untapped?
there's still a lot of the alumni clubs are still organized. Well, I'll tell you who's done the best job is the Braves.
Yeah.
Over
Bringing their
that cap.
Yeah.
Because the cap is a nice cap, but where else can you go to get two of your favorite things?
Yeah. I've never seen it before.
I can get a Braves cap with an Auburn logo on it. And I'm like, and my son can get, Braves cap with a Georgia logo on it. And I'm like, man, that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Right?
I was so surprised. I was like, how in the world did they pull that off? Knowing the licensing, how complicated that licensing must have been.
Well, believe it or not, the biggest collegiate licensing is based here.
Yeah. So that
Founded by
An Alabama grad.
Coach Bill Battle.
Yeah.
And who was, by the way, a player. Great story. Player for Coach Bryant. He's one of my longest mentors, one of the greatest men alive.
He's also pretty unassuming.
Well, if he was here today, he'd write you a thank you note.
Yeah.
And he's 80 years old.
Wow.
78, 80. Amazing. And still looks like, John Wayne, looks like he ought to be on Mount Rushmore. But he, little known story, he had played for Coach Bryant and then became the youngest head coach in college football at that time, the University of Tennessee.
Wow.
And was very successful. And it was considered sacrilege when he went up there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah.
And he only was able to beat Coach Bryant one time. I think he went 1-6 against Coach Bryant. So he had a rocky departure from the University of Tennessee.
Does anyone ever have a smooth departure from Tennessee?
Maybe that's why they call it Rocky Top, right?
Makes perfect sense.
But he goes back to he's from Birmingham. He moved to Selma, Alabama, and there was a very successful businessman who was tied into the University of Alabama, and it was during the time that Coach Bryant was breaking Alonzo Stagg's record, and there was no industry to govern the use of the trademarks or Coach Bryant's image and likeness. And Coach Bryant said, I've parted ways with Mark McCormick, the founder of IMG, and I want you to handle my affairs. And he goes, well, Coach, I'm a football coach. I don't understand anything about this. And he goes, no, but I trust you. And that was the genesis
of
the Collegiate Licensing Corporation, which many, many years. So he pioneered a multi-billion-dollar industry, and many, many years later, in the ultimate twist of irony, sold the company from tens of millions of dollars to who? IMG.
Yeah. And goes back to Bama.
And goes back to Alabama to be.
Who was the only person who could replace Mal Moore?
Well, I tell you, he and I were actually working on a film about Coach Bryant, which it's a labor of love for us. We haven't been able to do, but he convinced Coach Bryant to wear a pocket recorder and record his thoughts 4 weeks leading into tying and breaking Stag's record.
Wow, that's cool.
So we have 25 hours.
Such foresight.
Of these locker room tapes.
Yeah.
It's like finding lost Elvis tapes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he and I were we want to do a 30 for 30 on these tapes, and so we're still, there's a lot of creative issues, and and Mr. Bryant's, Coach Bryant's son, Mr. Bryant, was very involved with the University of Alabama, hugely successful down there, and he's another unknown catalyst behind all that. But that was the we were working on the film, and it was in March, and everybody knew that Coach Moore was sick, but they didn't know how sick. And so we were working on this, and then Coach Battle goes dark on me, which was very unusual because he's the most consistent follow-up guy. And a few days later, he called me and goes, well, I suppose you've noticed I've been dark. He said, tomorrow I'm going to accept the job of AD of University of Alabama. And I'll go.
Hey, thanks for calling and giving me that scoop.
And I was like, he said, and if you put that out on Twitter, I'm gonna skin you. But so I said, well, I want to come down there and be a part of this and support you. So, went down there, and it was very bittersweet because I don't remember if Coach Moore had passed or he was very close to passing.
I think he had passed.
And he was very, very beloved, obviously. And if you go into the front door of the athletic department, it's the Mal Moore facility, and all of the rings that he had ever won as a player or a coach or an AD were in there. But those tapes were fascinating in that the myth was that Coach Bryant had gotten too old and was not calling the games. Mm-hmm. So this is literally audio from Coach Bryant calling the game against Penn State and calling the game against Auburn. Mal Moore is the offensive coordinator, and he's, screaming at Mal. But the brilliant part about those tapes is that Coach Bryant was about always 3 to 4 plays ahead.
Wow. That's amazing.
Even at that age. And it's just fascinating to hear, that back and forth and all that.
That was Joe Pa at Penn State, right?
Yep, Joe Pa.
Man, that was a great rivalry when it was Penn State.
Oh, my God. Well, think about 79 Sugar Bowl. The amazing goal line stand, Barry Krause and those guys, the goal line stand, we won the national championship in 79. But, Coach Battle, but CLC, he located it over here eventually. And then it's still run out of here. And if you think about the ancillary, billions in revenue, that you see that little insignia that's still. And
you always know what it is. It's so, because you've seen it for so many years.
Yeah.
I know it when I first see it.
Yeah.
This is Mind Your Business. We got Vince Thompson. He is the CEO of Melt here in Atlanta. Brought to you by SR Homes, a builder that's focused on you. Go to srhomes.com to check them out. Let's take the next step I want to take you into is let's go down below. Have you ever thought about marketing when it comes to even younger than college, say high school, or say youth athletics? Because the reason I ask is because I know what I spend for my son to play travel baseball.
Yep.
And I could probably pay for his college.
Right.
Now, I can't replace the experiences he's had.
Right.
And I would never take that money back because it's not worth it. I mean, the experience of life is what we all live for.
Right.
But the money that's spent in youth and in high school level athletics, and sometimes even younger, because he started playing travel baseball at 8, there is an untapped market right there like no other.
Well, it's funny you should bring that up because I was having a meeting yesterday with a gentleman named Bob Vandergriff, who's a very successful race car driver, NHRA drag.
Yeah, all right.
But he was telling me about his 8-year-old son getting into travel baseball.
Oh.
And
Yes,
he
sir.
was beginning to tell me everything that's involved in that.
$500 bats, bought one this year.
Yep.
$300 baseball glove, bought one this year.
Because we'd do anything for our children, right?
Of course.
Now, interestingly, one of my best friends and business partners is a guy named Jeff Webb, is the founder of Varsity Cheerleader. For 45 years, he consolidated and created the cheerleading market.
Because that's another huge one.
By the way,
ESPN built that whole facility in Orlando
for him.
Yeah.
Well, they, by the way, just sold the business for $3 billion to Bain Capital. So cheerleading is very, very good.
Yes.
But the thing that he captured is evergreen, multi-generational, extracurricular. He makes the uniforms. He does 1,500 camps a year. Disney built him that facility. But the thing,
wow, that's amazing. That specific,
we'll have him
right
out
next
here
to
sometime.
Champion Stadium.
No, he's amazing. But you know, you make a really, really good salient point. We will do anything for our kids. One of the misnomers that a lot of parents make is that they think it may be a path to a scholarship.
Of course, that's what every
And
parent
if you
thinks.
look at the percentages,
Not there.
or the outcome, it doesn't add up. But to your point, like, you're getting the memories. If the kid loves it, they, you know, my son was never that. He wasn't into it that much, and so he didn't do it. But like, if you're into it, because like in the old days, we just had Little League baseball.
That's it.
You drove your bike, you practiced
With somebody else's bat.
and if your parents came or not, they weren't a bad parent because they were just working, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there's it's going to be interesting to see because, there's a lot of pressure on the parents, there's a lot of pressure on the kids, there's a lot of the disposable and discretionary income is focused on that. But on the other side, it is building teamwork, competition, camaraderie.
There's plenty of positives, for sure.
And so, but now, there's a couple of examples. Well, there these, stay and play. Lake Point is a perfect example.
Yeah, perfect game, the organization.
Perfect games out there.
The national director here on Mind Your Business.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And so Atlanta's kind of leading the way into that type of activity. Play On Sports is the big streaming company. David Rudolph that puts all the games out where if you're a grandparent and you're in Wyoming, you can see your kid playing in Georgia. And
Andrew Salzman worked there once.
Salzman was there, but the only, like I said, a couple. There's huge opportunities, and I could foresee like the Braves or Major League Baseball beginning to make serious investments in youth baseball facilities.
Well, they already have in many ways with the I forget the name of the program that they do, but it's basically inner city underserved communities that they already focus on.
Because it's future players.
That's right.
It's also future consumers,
of course,
and fans.
That's right. Yes,
and
sir.
So, but and David and I were talking about the investment of time, money, emotions, emotional capital in his son's pursuit in golf. And obviously that's a solo sport versus a team sport. But one of the unknown stories is the sacrifices the parents make. And
here.
And I'm talking about in time and money. But if you draw it back to attendance at weekend sporting events, your time and money is out on that baseball field.
You're exactly right. It is.
And so, in a limited, in a world of having a limited amount of both, where are you going to put it?
You're going to put it where your heart is.
You're going to put it where your heart is. You're going to put it where your kid is, so are you going to spend that $1,000 for the bat and the glove and the participation in the tournament, and the hotels, or go to a football game?
You're going to do whatever your kid wants.
You're going to do whatever your kid wants
every time.
And then you got it for $1,000. You got a TV on the wall as big as that board right there, where you can sit and consume it. And so
it's still the teams you love, like the Braves.
So the sports industry is undergoing a lot of transformation right now. Like I said, we had the Sports Business Journal in, and we did a panel with our interns, and we just said, tell us about your perception in the future of college football. And the number one thing the kids said?
What's that?
They wanted more water because it gets so hot.
At the ball game.
So I said, well, that's a great placement opportunity for Dasani. So we got that. Then they said, and then the beer didn't bubble up until about the 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
The other thing they said is they wanted quality matchups every game.
Of course, and that is a topic of conversation on Sports Talk Radio every day.
It is, and I think that you'll see that continue to be a topic. I think you're going to see bigger matchups, consistent matchups. You know, Saban has said, let's play 9 SEC games that are relevant.
Yeah, Kirby's scheduling like Oklahoma and Clemson and
Notre Dame,
of course.
And, you know, that ticket's going to be as valuable as the Super Bowl.
That game's gonna be
awesome. In prime and all that. So a lot of great opportunities, but I think Atlanta, you know, the leadership here and the things that we're all involved in, all of us, like you guys and stuff, we have an opportunity to really sort of set the pace and the tone of a lot of that in the future.
No,
So what are some external threats that you think Atlanta faces that we need to address?
Well, I think, I think, you know, we got to figure out this transportation issue, and I don't know if it's too late. I don't know that, because you also think about the barrier of say, okay, I live north of town at 400. To travel down to the Mercedes Stadium is a long way.
Yeah.
And then the Hawks have an even greater challenge because they have more frequent games and some during the week. So, it's a commitment of time to get down there and then get back.
You got to get out of work already.
And, one of the big, I think one of the big markers of when the Braves moved here is that, and like I said, we all had great memories of Turner Field and the Olympics and all that in Fulton County, but they moved to where their market was, right?
Where the most of their season ticket holders.
And so there was, in spite of the way that it was done or perceived to be done, there was some serious business insights and research into, okay, where are our fans coming from to the game? And think about the biggest challenge they got. They got to sell 81 games.
Yeah.
And you're going to get it in the summer, but April and May, and then this madness of these kids starting so early in August. You really only have June and July is the true bread and butter salad months to drive that attendance. Now we're doing well. We'll get them in August and September.
Put a winner on the field, though, you overcome a lot of that.
Well, it's all about the product.
It is.
It's all about the quality of the product. I think that's probably, why you've seen a little bit of weakness with the Falcons. Got to hit a couple speed bumps the last year or two. I'm not a personal fan of the personal seat license. I get it.
Yeah.
But
I'm with you.
I think it's
the biggest sham in sports.
I think it's arbitrarily,
I wouldn't do it.
I think that it's arbitrarily driven a lot of the fans out. Now, it's interesting. I just read this week where they're sort of just packaging it all together now.
Article?
Right, yeah. It's Tucker's article. He was spot on.
11,000 seats underreported.
I've got a 30-year-old adopted son, and that I've raised since he was 10 in 2000. Huge Falcons fan. Huge. Had his season tickets. Works hard. That was his treat to himself. And when they came out with the initial pricing and PSL and structure and all that, they offended and alienated him.
Yeah,
hurt his feelings because it was he took that personally, took that offensive.
Well, and rightfully so, because you've just priced so many of your fans out of the market altogether.
Yeah, and I tell you another thing that I have. Every ticket stub of every event I've ever attended in my life.
I do the same thing. I say ball drives my wife crazy.
And my credentials and everything.
Me too.
And I get all the data. I get Ticketmaster. I get the scannable and all that. But
that's a memory.
I'm telling you that's and this cashless exercise and all this, that's a barrier for a lot of people for lots of reasons. Not everybody has the sophistication or can afford the sophistication of the technology that we all have.
Or understand it.
They're intimidated by it. They don't understand it, and they don't trust it.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people don't. Some don't care, but some do. So,
I bet it's 50-50.
It is. It's got to be. And then it's it's decimated the secondary market. And there used to be
It's never worked at music festivals. I don't understand why they think it's going to work for sports.
I don't. Yeah. And here's the thing. What happens if your phone dies?
you're just in for. You're just done for.
So we'll see where that. I mean, I get the data collection, and I understand that we do it and all that, but
there's other ways.
But to me, like, it's impersonalize the experience a little bit.
Yeah.
Or keeping that ticket or having that value add on the back of the ticket and just really kind of so we'll see where that goes, because we live in a very sophisticated city. We're all sophisticated consumers because of the things we do, but not everybody is.
I'm telling you, that's why I say it's 50-50, because my parents and they have no idea. If I told them I was going to send them to the Braves game or the Falcons game or wherever, and I was going to email them the tickets, it would blow their mind.
Well, you might as well tell them you're going to send a spaceship out.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So I understand, like I said, I understand the data, I understand the ease of use, I understand the tracking and all that, but I could challenge that them having as much data on me as possible is not going to drive me to think about going to a game other than if I want to go see a matchup, the quality product on the field, or my son. You know what I mean?
Totally.
I think of 100%. The liability of data hacks. Like, because I'm sitting, if I'm a Russian hacker, I'm sitting there going, do I want to mess with the firms who are used to this stuff, or do I want to go after the sports teams
that have no idea?
Is an afterthought.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and we just had a huge, what was it? One of the banks that
Equifax, Capital One.
Capital One. That's exactly right. But Equifax here in town and Capital One.
Well, they say now you're not going to get your $125 from Equifax.
I was so disappointed.
And all that. Well, the lawyers got it. I'm promise you that on that.
Yeah.
So I got one thing for you. I want to know when the last time you had to do it was and what it is. Your elevator pitch.
Oh, hell, every day.
Yeah, right.
So what's your elevator pitch?
My elevator pitch is that we're an ad agency disguised as a sports marketing firm, because I learned a long time ago that being everything to everybody is a general services, and that we are very deep and vertical in the world of college athletics and the world of sports, and we represented the Coca-Cola company for 19 years, and so if we are able to represent the most iconic brand in the world, we probably can do that job for you.
Yeah. Have you ever met Muhtar Kent?
I've never. No, I've met Mr. Kent, but I don't know him.
Is he a sports fan?
Oh yeah, and he's just gregarious and a bottler, and then bottling community, and now James Quincy's the new chairman. And
what was he? Was he the old COO?
I think he was the COO. He came from international, and then the president of Coke North America is a fellow named Jim Dinkins, who's a Georgia dog.
That a boy.
And he has a passion for college athletics, which is
probably great.
Which is a good thing for my business, right?
Yes, sir.
And but it's really good to see that Coke and a lot of the Atlanta companies are really, really, you look at a lot of the Atlanta companies, such as Coca-Cola, was not a sponsor of the NFL, but they still gave money to the local Super Bowl committee.
Yeah.
So they went.
The way they handled everything was
brilliant.
So brilliant.
Think about the civil rights.
That was my favorite thing.
And then that what Coke's done this month is now it's free admission into the College Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah. It's funny. I was in Seattle 2 weeks ago for a buddy of mine I was in the Navy with. He got married, asked me to be his best man, so I go out there. The first question I was asked about was how Coke handled that, and the fact that the Civil Rights Museum was so cool.
It was unbelievable.
Because they'd come to town for that. Yeah. And that's the first thing they brought up in Seattle from Atlanta.
Now, I'm not going to lie. I pushed Coke to be a little more aggressive. I'm sure you're shocked to hear that.
Yeah.
But they were like, we're going to, the circus will pack up and move on. We're still going to be here.
They played it cool.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, Pepsi came in. Yeah. I don't know if you'd call it guerrilla marketing, but
it was a little bit.
It was.
But good. I mean, it was smart.
It was very clever.
Yeah,
very clever, because it would be like, they had a Gone with the Wind play where it was like Pepsi in Atlanta, how did it ever get in, and all this stuff. And people were like, where are you, Coke? What are you going to do? And then Coke comes out and they're like, free admission to the Center for Civil and Human Rights.
It was just genius.
The classiest thing they could have done, and it was the most Atlanta thing they could have done.
Genius. But now I would tell you, you'll probably see a little more Coke during the Final Four this next year.
Well, they're the sponsor.
Because we're the sponsor, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there's we forget that companies are made up of citizens and human beings as well. And it's really fun to watch the interaction. I mean, I tell you, another perfect one is this whole tour championship and East Lake phenomenon. I mean, think about the vision that Mr. Cousins had 20, 30 years ago. Look at what's going on out there now but you had tremendous people like Chris Womack at Southern Company leaning in, Mr. Fanning leaning in, Coca-Cola Company leaning in. Sandy Douglas was the president at the time. Charlie Franklin. So I mean, so think about that. But you know, I could argue the catalyst to all this was when we won the Olympic bid.
Oh yeah.
So and then I got over here in 2000, 4 years post-Olympic, but you know, I think Atlanta would be doing really, really well. But I think if you say what's the most singular defining moment of the sports business of this town is the winning the bid.
Yeah. I don't think there's any question there.
And
Centennial Olympic Park.
Yeah. Well, but
the whole downtown is
so. But the next one is going to be the World Cup.
World Cup, absolutely.
That's going to put Atlanta on an international. It's on an international stage, but nothing like
now,
this.
Now, World
before.
Cup. You know, we activated it for Powerade last year, and then we do. You know, we worked on Copa and we worked on Women's World Cup and all that, because it is a truly global sport. And you know, I think the World Cup, to your point, is going to be the next monster one.
Yeah. Well,
and
who's the bigger entity, the NFL or FIFA?
That's a good question. You know, in North America, I mean, it's NFL.
NFL, hands down.
So if I'm sitting there and I'm, you know, if I'm UPS and I'm going, we got $10 million we're going to put in to either the NFL and own America, or we want to go global. How do you? I mean,
that's a damn good question. I would still put my money on the NFL.
I think I would too,
because you know. You have the ability to have a year-round conversation with the fans. You have the ability to have more frequent interactions from a business-to-business perspective. But that's a fascinating question, because it also depends on what UPS objectives were.
Yeah.
You know, but you don't have the frequency of World Cup or Olympics as much as you do an NFL game.
Yeah.
Now, the next question would be: do I put it on professional football or professional or professional soccer?
Oh, I was going to say college.
Well, professional football, college football, or like the EPL and some of that. And so, but soccer probably is still a generation away of full maturity
in the United States.
Yeah,
right.
But
once that happens, do you think soccer or FIFA, or because the way I look at it, FIFA can't dethrone the NFL. The MLS is going to have a tough time too, because MLS is just North America.
Nobody's going to dethrone the NFL.
You think
but
the NFL, the rest of our life, is going to be the king?
Yeah,
the rest of our life, for sure.
Yeah, and but you know, it's still. Like I said, I would tell you that like this Atlanta United phenomenon is unlike anything that I've ever seen. And they may tell you, everybody may tell you they had it all figured out, but nobody saw this coming.
No, they didn't.
And I'll tell you, I got a theory about that. So, you know, people forget the Dome was not ready.
Right.
So they played at Georgia Tech.
Yep. Small stadium.
They played on Sunday afternoon, right there. You couldn't get in because there was only 40,000, 50,000 people there.
Stadium. Yeah.
And it was outdoors,
mm-hmm.
and it was. I'll never forget this. I took my boys, Carter and Steph, on a Sunday afternoon, and Georgia Tech's not the easiest stadium to walk around, by the way, but the energy was amazing.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
And the trial, I call it a trial strategy. I'm like, man, this is fun. I think I'll go back when they move to the Dome. And I promise you, some of the seeds of greatness were planted unwittingly by those games being played at Georgia Tech.
Do you think that actually, because I think they may have actually taken a step backwards because they were at the Dome, at Mercedes-Benz, and not at Georgia Tech?
1,000%. Because of the intimacy.
That's exactly right.
That you had at Georgia Tech.
Bobby Dodd provided. Good luck getting the caliber of players.
Oh, no, of course.
No. You're right about that. You're right about that. You're right about that. But the loss of intimacy.
Just a little.
Yeah, with the product. But I thought, I'll never forget, it was a Sunday afternoon. It was a really pretty day. It wasn't too hot. And I was like, wow. Because I had worked FIFA and Copa and all that, but had not really done a lot around the MLS. And then the quality of the product, the quality of the experience, the melting pot of fans, and it was interesting. I was reading a piece about where, in soccer there's no commercial breaks, right?
That's right.
Except halftime. And with NFL and college and NBA, there's 44 minutes of game and 16 minutes of commercial airtime. So I think that the soccer product is more tailored for today's consumer of sports than the other traditional sports.
Get it quick and get it hard.
So
and they kind of overlay it, right? They put an ad on top of where you're still watching the game. It's not stop, watch 2 ads, 3 ads, and then back into the action. It happens at the same time.
So it'll be.
That's what football is going to have to do too.
Fox has started. They're all trying to start doing it now, but Fox is doing it because consumers don't want to be interrupted now unless they interrupt themselves. And everybody's on multiple devices during that, and so. But I could. Here's another thing I'd argue about is that the next interesting thing you're going to see is when all the big social media companies and streaming companies get into bidding for the sports rights,
which is not too far off.
Well, you're going to see it.
Facebook has already made
a play. You're going to see it. Twitter. Amazon
made a play for the NFL Sunday Ticket. I don't think they got it. I think that it's back on direct, if I'm not mistaken.
Twitter's been doing it with lacrosse a lot.
And Twitter's been doing baseball. Facebook has been doing baseball streams.
I like watching baseball on Facebook.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, think about this. The Colonial Athletic Association just signed a deal with Flow Sports, total over the top, OTT. Look at DAZN. They're using the brilliant thing about sports programming, live sports programming, is still the singular most galvanizing force to gather the most amount of eyeballs at any given space or place.
So is that your sale, sports marketing versus traditional marketing?
Yep, 1,000%.
Say it again.
Sports is the singular most galvanizing way to gather the most amount of eyeballs at any given time around an experience. At Netflix, you tailor your consumption. Network television, you don't watch a lot anymore because you can tailor your consumption at Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime or, a lot of people don't even have cable anymore, right? And then now you got this dispute with Dish going on with FS1 and Fox Sports South and all this, and some people can't watch the Braves and all that. Nobody wants that anymore. Nobody wants a $200 or $300 cable bill anymore. Those types of things, and so live sports is still the biggest and best and safest bet for the most qualified and quality and quantity amount of reach to consumers in the country. March Madness and Super Bowl and then March Madness are the 2 largest casual fan consumption occasions in the world.
Yeah, right. Super Bowl, understandably, because everybody, it's more of an event than people don't even care. Yeah, people don't even care who's in the game about half the time.
March Madness bracket.
You're exactly right, and I can so see that in my own household. And my wife's a sports fan to begin with, but she so loves the Super Bowl. She loves filling out a bracket at March Madness. She didn't watch a basketball game one. But she can't wait to fill out a bracket.
And it's interesting. The first Thursday and the first Friday of March Madness are the 2 biggest lost work time and days because everybody's watching March Madness. So, and to me that it's just to me it's more magical than the Super Bowl. Because it's so big and there's so many games and there's so many kids. And
college athletics, I think, are just more passionate than.
Well, the emotion of it. I mean, think of when that the kid from Auburn, Chuma, went down against North Carolina, and then the next game, we're not doing well. He's in his hotel room. They wheel him out after the half, and we just blow him out.
It's just that
and
passion.
So that emotion and the passion and they're. This is what I tell people about college sports. It's like, guys, these are still kids.
Yeah.
They're teenagers. Forget. They may have broken up with their girlfriend the night before, and they don't play well the next day. Yeah. That stuff happens.
Absolutely.
Right? So, I've been blessed to, have really been able to pursue my passion. This town has been really good to me. Coca-Cola Company's been really good to me. People like David Dickey have been good to me. The thing that I love about doing business in Atlanta is it rewards the hustle. They don't care where you came from, who your daddy is.
You can look at the music industry and find that whether hip hop or country, those guys are out there hustling every day, and they make it.
Well, that's the thing, and they're hustling. They're utilizing technology. They're utilizing social media. I'm glad that during the Super Bowl that everybody came to their senses, and we gave a nod to all the rich Atlanta talent. I didn't agree with Maroon 5 performing. I think it should have been, like a even if a Luke Bryan, mixed it up with Luda or something like that. But it didn't make any sense to me. And it didn't make any sense because the lead singer of Maroon 5 is on a television show of a competing network that wasn't airing the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So what is he on, The Voice?
Yes.
And that's on
NBC.
Think about that.
Yeah, it's on NBC.
And so, but again, they're not $4 and will get you, and that'll get you, or $1 get you a Coke and an opinion
and a smile.
But they didn't because they weren't paying to ask me. And you never know why those decisions are made and not made.
Yeah.
But the town, I think we're still just, it's still. I think you're right. I think the lead up to the World Cup is going to be massive. And then I think coming out of that is going to be, I can't think of another city that's as hot between TV, film, music, and sports. The interesting other phenomenon, we'll talk about it another time, I've coined a phrase called athletepreneur.
Athletepreneur. I know exactly where you're going with. A guy that knows what he wants to do outside of his playing, whatever his business of choice is.
This is a mecca of retired professional athletes.
Yeah.
With hopefully some money and a lot of time looking for ways to channel it. We opened up Cam Newton Cigar Club Fellowship. David and I are involved with the Big Hurt and the 404 Vodka.
Yes, sir.
Black Diamond Grill.
Yep, there you go, right there. So these athletes have tremendous ideas, and they may have been burned by a talent manager or a friend of family or whatever. But the main thing is they have this platform, and they have the ability to build this platform. And so I could see an entirely new industry being gathered around the athletepreneurs, business incubators, schools around that, bringing kids in and out to mentor them and tutor them and that type of stuff. With leadership like people like the Dickies and Coca-Cola, and I think that we've got an opportunity to really do that. It can make an economic impact to society, but it also can make a social impact to society. What can Champ Bailey give back to the community? What does he want to give back? How can he use his influence to help? The national organization of the Boys and Girls Club is right here. So what can we do to really build those kind of things together? So I think we're just really getting started. I really do.
There's no doubt about it. Got a final question?
Yeah. So one of my favorite things is asking people, have you ever taken advantage of your relationships to get access to something that you wanted to just be a fan at?
That's a great question. I'll answer that two ways.
And I don't mean like calling David for tickets. I mean like, hey man, get me backstage.
No, I'll tell you this. I like to do it for other people.
Yeah.
Because
that never gets old.
Because not everybody has the access that we do, and so we take it for granted many, many times. Mm-hmm. And so, I'll give you a perfect example. So Auburn's in the Final Four. Words you thought you'd never say. Yeah. Auburn's in the Final Four.
Right.
So I called 6 or 8 of my old best friends from Auburn, my fraternity brothers. And I said, if you can get
You're Fiji, right?
Yeah, I was Fiji. I got the tattoo. I got the brand to prove it. But if you can figure out a way to get to Minneapolis and a place to stay, I'll get you a ticket to the game.
Wow.
And because how many moments in life do you get that opportunity to share that? And so I think, to me, it's so gratifying. I walk on the sideline of any college football game. And by the way, the other thing about it is it never gets old for me. But when you take somebody down particularly the kids and things for the first time, and they're down there.
Yeah, and their eyes are.
It reminds me of me when I was that age.
Yeah.
You know, I'd just be running onto the Senior Bowl after the game, ripping the chin straps off of Snake Stabler and all those guys. But that never gets old for me, but providing that access. I think
it's like Jacob.
If
my son.
It's cool when his son goes around. Oh yeah, it's awesome.
Let me see. I'm thinking. I don't. You know, I'm not sure. I think. I will tell you the coolest thing. The coolest thing I ever did, and it was an opportunity created for me by Joel Katz, the famous Atlanta music attorney.
Yes, sir.
Is going backstage during the Grammys.
Oh wow, yeah.
I mean, it was
L.A. or New York.
Both. We did it in L.A. one year, and then when they moved to the Garden, we did it there. But backstage at the Grammys was like taking this live tour through the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
No kidding.
Like, oh, there's Stevie Wonder. Oh, there's Bob Dylan. Oh, there's Bruce Springsteen. Oh, there's Eminem. There, it was like, to me that was so cool, right?
Yeah.
Because, there's several defining things in life, but you remember your favorite songs. It takes you back to a time. You remember your favorite plays. You remember, your wedding day or the birth of your child, and those types of things. But think about, like I remember I actually witnessed Bo Jackson going over the top to break the 9-year winning streak at Legion Field.
Wow.
I got to witness Cam's comeback in 2010 at Alabama. We were down 24-7 at the half.
That was the best
half in the history. I took my father and son to the Auburn, Oregon.
For the record.
And by the way, Alabama got up 24-0. It was like a jet engine in there.
Yeah.
Dude, halftime was off the chain.
Oh my God.
And then Cam Newton just sucked all the oxygen out.
I mean, it was unbelievable. And so that I was able to witness the national championship, but then I was able to witness the kick six.
Oh wow.
Which was the most unbelievable experience. But think about the emotional, and I remember sitting in the living room watching the Patriots and the Falcons going,
oh my
man, you're celebrating too early. It's 28-7. We we can't let our guard. You could feel it coming back, right?
You could. Yeah.
But that, Sid Bream sliding in the slide and the 95. Yeah, I mean that's ingrained in you. So
it is.
The emotional nature. I think my only unfulfilled bucket list, and you'll laugh, and I'll show you this letter one day to prove it. I got to show this to Schiller now. I think when I was 12, I wrote Hank Aaron was my favorite player.
Yeah.
74, breaks a home run record. I think I wrote the Braves and said, can I be a bat boy for a game? And they wrote me back and they said, since you're not 16, you can't do it.
Yeah.
And so I got to get with Schiller on that.
Yeah.
Is that I think that would be the only unfulfilled. I wanted to be a bat boy and I wanted to be a ball boy at Wimbledon.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking this like I was back.
Yeah.
I'm handwriting letters, when I'm 8 years old and go down to the post office.
Pretty cool. They wrote back.
Yeah, I know.
In the old days, I've got a personalized signed autograph from Hammer and Hank.
Wow.
To Vince. It was a postcard. Send it back.
He's one of a kind.
Oh my God!
His grandson interned on our radio show, and let me tell you, I told him, I said, Ray, you've got to do a podcast at some point because these stories are legendary.
Hank Aaron, hey, by the way, Mobile guy.
I know, we got a stadium named after him.
Yeah, and but that's the other funny thing too is that there was like it was so sports is still so pure. There's no color barriers. It was like we loved Hammering Hank, and I was sitting there when he hit 715. I was sitting there. 1975 Game 6, Red Sox, Cincinnati Reds, Carlton Pudge Fist hits the winning home run. They go to the Big Red Machine. They go to 7 games. I'm in tears. Then of course the Big Red Machine.
Yeah.
And I used to. I'll tell you how big of a nerd I was. So the big vacation every year as a kid was that we would come to a Braves game.
Oh wow!
And
for me too.
And the Reds were my favorite team, Big Red Machine. Because I was catcher and I loved Johnny Bench. And Joe Morgan was second baseman, Pete Rose, Tony Perez, Dave Concepcion, Ken Griffey. So I would call the Reds and find out the hotel the Reds were staying in. And I literally would camp out in the lobby. And I have a card autographed of every member of the Cincinnati.
Just by going there.
Just by sitting in the lobby.
They would tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nowadays, that's not going down.
Losing their job.
Think about it now. Well, and the sad part is, a lot of people won't sign anymore because of the trafficking of the autographs and all that kind of stuff.
What do you think about that? I hate that.
I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right. And I realize I got contracts and all this, but think about and use me as an example. Those experiences shaped my entire life, right?
Yeah.
And so, but you're kind of seeing it. Baseball, they're throwing the balls in the stand. LeBron will throw his jersey in the stand, or the sneakers, or the shoes, or all that. And I wish it. I want it to be like it was in the old days. Now, I don't know if anything ever will be or is again, but those experiences and the selfie.
Yeah, it's kind of.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You don't print the pictures out anymore.
No, they're just virtual.
And I'm like, I still got, I'll tell you a great story. When I was 10 years old, went to the Braves game, Fulton County, and I'll show you the picture one day. Somehow, I talked my way into the dugout.
What?
And I'm sitting there with Ralph Garr.
I love it.
Who was the NL batting champion in 73. I think I was just 73 when I did it. And my parents are like, where the hell is Vince? And they look down, and I'm in the dugout. Because you'd let your kids run around at that time.
Yeah, right.
And now you're like, oh, my God, they're going to get kidnapped and all this. But so, I was pursuing what I wanted to do.
You knew it ahead of time.
At a pretty early age. But
that's awesome.
I think the thing about me is that, I never lose that even today. I mean, think of how blessed I am to be able to get up and do what I love every day.
Not everybody gets to do that.
No. And I think that's, that energy that I try to push down to the organization and to our talent. We're able to recruit the best talent in the world now. And so, I've been blessed. I mean, I never thought I'd be on this crazy career path. And that's what I tell the kids. I'm like, don't put so much pressure on yourself. Your path is going to be your path.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's two things I tell them. As much as you can, live in the moment. Don't worry about it, because your path's going to be your path. And don't take anything personal. I wish I had learned that a lot earlier, because you don't know what somebody's going through. And so they may be projecting a certain behavior on you that doesn't have anything to do with you.
Yeah. Tug has to walk me back all the time.
Yeah, let me tell you, we're good yin and yang on
I
that.
wish I had...
it's just the experience.
I wish I had
42.
Well, I was going to say,
I
wish I had learned it at your age, because it's really, really true, because because you just don't, you never know what somebody's going through or how that influences their interaction or their behavior towards you.
Exactly right.
Right?
You're exactly
right. So, but this is great, guys. Thank you for having me.
Gosh.
It's always
Thanks
an honor.
for coming in. We appreciate it.
It's an honor, and if we can help kids and help influence them and move the city forward and all that, that's really why we're kind of all here.
There you go. Vince Thompson, he is the CEO of Atlanta-based Melt, and you've been watching Mind Your Business, Sports, Music, and Money. My name is Tug Coward, along with Phil Hudson, and it is a little podcast, video podcast. I don't even know what to call it anymore, because there's just so many layers of it. Right. Just to hang out and just talk about his company, what he's done, and what he's been a part of. And we just appreciate you listening and watching, and certainly appreciate the folks at SR Homes who sponsors Mind Your Business. Visit them at srhomes.com, and they are a builder that is focused on you. Make it a great day.
Roll Tide.
Well,
War Eagle.
dogs.
At SR Homes, our end goal is to create a home that's unique to you, one that you and your family will enjoy for years to come. With over 4 decades of home building experience, SR Homes has become a top home builder in Atlanta, offering a variety of communities in the most sought-after locations. Locally owned and operated, SR Homes is a builder focused on you. For more information, visit us at srhomes.com.